Never put off tomorrow what you can do today. Hello, friend. The other night I was driving home from work, and like a lot of times, I was low on gas. And I don't know if you have this moment in time where you're driving home and you're low on gas, where you convince yourself that it's better off to fill the car up tomorrow morning on your way to work. But that's my battle. And so I was driving home. Tomorrow's Zach's problem. Today, Zach just wants to get home. We do this in all sorts of areas, don't we? Where tomorrow version of ourselves has to deal with it, not today. Hebrews has something to say about that. And so let's dive in. Hebrews 12:11. Here's what it says. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Stopping and getting gas is painful. I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek about it, but it is a little painful. Like when I'm done with work, I want to be done with the day, and I just want to get home. I'm like a horse that is out on a ride. I don't know if you've ever ridden horses, but when they're coming back to the barn, they get a little excited. They're ready to go home and eat. And when I'm done with work, I'm ready to get home and eat. I can minimize what it's like the next morning, but usually I'm running at the last second to get to work. And when I don't fill up the car with gas, then I got to stop and get gas. And then, oh, that's why I'm late. No, that's not why I was late. I was late because I didn't do yesterday what I should have done and put it off for today. And the more we do that, the more we put on tomorrow's version of ourselves. Here's the thing about procrastination, though. Procrastination is a habit. And that's good news, because habits can be changed. Let's dive into why it's a habit. Here's what happens. There's a trigger, low on gas. Then we avoid it. We being me. There's a payoff. I took something off my plate without doing anything. Awesome, cha-ching. But it's a false payoff. And that's where we need to start. So even though we get a payoff for procrastination, like we feel better for a moment, there's always a cost. And I don't think we stop long enough and look at it and acknowledge the cost of procrastination. Here's one example of how it happened in my life. I own a restaurant, and had a worker call me and say that our bar wasn't working. The bar is a place where you make the pizza and it holds a bunch of product. And so I said, it's fine. It probably just went out. And I didn't deal with it. Came in the next morning, I had to throw away a ton of food, which I knew I was going to have to do. But because I didn't take the time and do what needed to be done today and go look at the thing, I threw out a bunch of food, but it was only unplugged. If I would have driven to the store, it would have saved me like $1,000. Ouch. I think when we look back at our life, we can look at procrastination costs us more than the procrastination gained us. That's why we want to change. So let's acknowledge we're not happy with the procrastination habit. You made it this far in the video. I know you're not happy with it either. So how do we change that? First thing is we notice the trigger. So the example of me driving home, it's that I'm low on gas. I notice, hey, I need to get gas. And what do we do in that moment? That's where we're tempted to procrastinate. The bigger the task, the easier it is to procrastinate. So the first thing we do is break it into a smaller thing. Here's why I don't like to get gas. The place with the cheapest gas that I like to go is kind of out of the way. It requires more of me. It's a bigger task. And how I beat procrastination in this circumstance is I go to a different gas station that costs a little more, that takes less effort. For you, when you're procrastinating, what's the thing that you can break into the smaller task? An example from my own life is running. I love to run, and that used to not be the case. And so I set out, I wanted to run a marathon. Why? I don't know, but I did. But not enough to actually train for it. Have you ever been there, like you want something, but not enough to actually do it? I think we have a lot of areas of our lives. So I wasn't running at all, but I wanted to run a marathon, and I was telling others. And so I was like, okay, I need to break it down to a smaller task. And so I'm like, I'm going to go run to 5 miles. And I still was not running that 5. So I broke it down smaller and smaller. It did not work for me to run regularly until I broke it down to the smallest task. You know what that was? It wasn't the amount of miles run, it wasn't the amount of minutes ran, it was putting on my running shoes. I broke it down so small that 5 days a week, I'm going to put on running shoes. And if I put on those running shoes, that's success. Here's the thing that I learned. Once I put on the running shoes, I actually run. It felt weird to take them off and go back in the house. So it got me running. What we can forget when we're procrastinating is that it's a habit, like I said earlier. And so we get so focused on the thing we're not wanting to procrastinate. Instead, what we need to focus on is the habit we're trying to change. So if you break it down small, notice your trigger, break it down small, and you're going to do it even just a little bit, as small as you can, and do that repetitively, it becomes a new habit. They've been doing a lot of cool research in the brain, and they've noticed that there's a part of the brain that harnesses willpower and habit, and that can be grown over time. Here's what you have to do. Do something you don't want to do. That's what they said, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. And I don't know about you, but that gives me the motivation to not procrastinate things like getting gas. If I can break down these small things and notice that over time, it'll change my brain in such a way that I'll get even more and more willpower. So remember, you're changing a habit. It's not the specific thing you're procrastinating, it's the habit of procrastination you're trying to change. Notice the trigger, break it down small, and count 3, 2, 1, and do something small.